Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So a lot of you guys have been solo queuing ranked, and well, today's guide is dedicated to help you improve with top 5 tips whenever you solo queue. I have Hollow here today. He is the literal master when it comes to solo queuing. You got to check out his channel. He did a solo to masters. Link is going to be in the description down below, but let's give an introduction. Hollow, what's going on, man?
What's good?
All right, so we're going to ask you, and I already got your list here of the top 5 tips, but I want you to go into detail about these tips. So tip number 1 you have written down is commit to a play, good or bad. What does that mean as tip number 1?
There's a lot of people that I encounter in ranked that basically suffer from analysis paralysis, which is this idea that every single play that they need to make needs to be absolutely perfect. And something that way too many people don't seem to remember is that commitment and follow through are going to be the two biggest determiners of whether or not you win or lose a fight, or whether or not a play is successful or unsuccessful. So instead of kind of sitting in a building and trying to formulate the best possible game plan going forward, a lot of times, especially when you're under pressure, it is almost always better to just do something and then focus on how well you do that thing, right? So if you're in a position where you kind of just need to push someone, instead of sitting there and thinking about the best possible way to push, and instead of sitting there and trying to over formulate the plan, just push and just kill him. Like, if you have good enough aim, if you have good enough positioning, if you have enough of an understanding of the reload timings and enough of an understanding of the terrain around you, then you have an advantage over them, and all you need to do is act on it. In a nutshell, what a lot of people do is they just overthink everything, and it's better just to commit and to follow through with a bad play than it is to sit there twiddling your thumbs trying to figure out what the best possible play is.
Great tip. You know, I'm going to go ahead and point the elephant out in the room. We are two different people. Hollow is one person, I'm another person. So the next person that comments that we're just talking to ourselves, I'm going to blow up and start screaming. So let's go to tip number 2. So tip number 2 you wrote down, have a plan. So this is before, during, and after. What does that mean?
You guys notice how when Daz stops talking, I start talking, and it's literally impossible for us to talk at the same time. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Anyway,
there is no overlap. In fact, this is post-editing of us overlapping the audio.
Yeah, we have to fake it.
Even the laugh. You see, I'm gonna use my different laugh. Okay, ready? A different person here.
What did I even write down?
You said have a plan for tip number 2. What is your before, during, and after plan?
On the flip side of the whole committing thing, and on the flip side of the follow through thing, it is still important to have a good plan. Don't get me wrong. You can't, like, there's way too many people, especially controller players, that just have no understanding of how the game actually is supposed to be played from the perspective of a team-based game or a battle royale or a character-based game or even a first-person shooter half the time. Like, they just kind of run around and ooga booga people with aim assist, and it works, right? I think that it's really important to properly inform your decision making, and instead of viewing it as the idea of memorizing every possible good decision in every possible situation, I think that it's more important to have formulas and to have overarching thought processes that allow you the opportunity to adapt them to specific situations. And one of those is the idea of before, during, and after, where if you are formulating a plan, you need to know what you are going to do before the play, during the play, and after the play. So, for example, if I'm playing Wraith and I'm trying to set my team up for success with a rotate or something, but we have a team that's kind of gatekeeping us, before we fight this team, we have the focal point being fighting the team, so that would be the during. But before we fight the team, I'm going to set my portal. I'm going to make sure that the start and end points of my portal are safe positions. And I'm going to make sure that, before we fight this team, I also nade off this door so that my teammates can get through the portal safely. During the fight, I'm going to make sure to focus who I need to focus. I'm going to make sure to commit to knocking whoever my teammates have done the most damage to, as long as it's not at the expense of my own life. And then after we fight this team, we're going to immediately posture ourselves. We're not even going to loot. We're just going to grab armor swaps, and then we're going to immediately posture ourselves to get ready for the third party that is going to come from behind us because we saw a team there earlier, right? I feel like that sets you up for a lot of success, and I feel like that can help people have more direction and more purpose to how they play. Right? And it takes practice. It's very brain power intensive. It's not something that you're just going to be able to immediately do. But I feel like just having that in the back of your mind, and being able to leverage that during downtime.
Downtime. That's a good
I feel
tip
like being
overall.
able to. Yeah,
I want to
I think it's
say
important.
this is a really good segue because you're probably thinking, I bet you everyone's watching saying that takes a lot of communication, or that takes a lot even if you're solo queuing. Well, tip number 3, Hollow wrote down communication non-verbal is not enough, even quick confirmation. So break down, what does this mean? Because it feels like there was a lot of thought process behind this, because now after all that mess of making sure you know the before, during, and after, you got to have the communication here, even in solo ranking, right?
Whether or not you're on a team with 2 other people in a Discord call screaming at each other, playing ALGS, or whether or not you're playing with 2 randoms that might not have the ability to see or hear or shoot their gun correctly, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Communication is the only way to bridge the gap between the way that you see the game and the way that they see the game. A lot of times when you see clips of ALGS players or professional players dying in team fights, and a lot of times when they're yelling at each other afterwards, a lot of the biggest discrepancies that you'll see in these team fights that happen is just a complete lack of being on the same page, right? Where you have 3 different people that are playing 3 different versions of Apex Legends. And even if you're not comfortable with IGLing or telling other people what to do, because don't get me wrong, I understand how Apex randoms are, where they're very egotistical, and whenever you try to tell them what to do, they get really angry. I think that just confirmation calls are incredibly important, and a confirmation call is just a really simple kind of call where you're just telling people what kind of damage that you did, where people are, who's won, who's not, what you're doing. I'm thirsting, I'm batting. There's a couple ways that you can frame it to where people don't get mad. You can either say that you can make like a suggestive call, like a suggestion, like, you guys want to do this or that or whatever? Because most people aren't thinking anyway. And so when you put the thought in their mind, a lot of times they're just going to do it, And then another thing that you can do is you can just tell people what you're doing and then just kind of expect them to follow you. It's not really the best option. It's not as good as, the other thing, but it's still just any way to kind of get around the Apex player ego, and any way to get around how people naturally react to being told what to do.
Tip number 4, Hollow, you mentioned next is stop crafting banners and that momentum is key. What do you mean by this?
This is a more specific tip. It's not really like an overarching formula. It kind of ties into one. One thing that I see a lot of ranked players do is they'll pick a support legend. They will play in a very standoffish way whenever they fight. And then whenever anything goes wrong, they will run away and go craft banners. And a lot of these people severely overvalue the idea of staying alive, and they don't understand the concept of momentum in Apex. Apex is a game of pushing a snowball down a hill, and whenever you die and whenever you get res, regardless of the fact that you have 2 guns and some ammo now, I mean, it used to be a lot worse, regardless of what you have now off of a res, and regardless of the fact that you are alive, you still have no loot, you have no attachments, you have no batteries, you have no medkits, whatever. It's almost a reincarnation of the rat mentality, where instead of people running away and hiding in a corner to gain RP, they instead now just play a support legend and run away and craft banners without actually being involved in the fight. Live longer so that, if the lobby dies off quickly, you can very easily
mitigate it. It's crazy because you can't, when you get to plat and diamond, especially diamond, you need kills. Like, if you don't have any kills, you're not gaining.
Placement by itself is never going to be enough in higher ranks, and more people really need to get that. Apex players do not adapt to things very quickly. It takes a long time for people to learn. And if you're crafting banners, and if you're just kind of being standoffish the entire game, you don't have the ability to propel your Evo game, which is really important. Even if you're getting Evo harvesters and scanning stuff and doing your daily tasks all game, it doesn't really matter. Fighting and being able to get to that red shield in the end game is really, really, really important. And so if you are going to craft banners, my biggest piece of advice is to do so with the intention of immediately going back and third partying, or looking for a third party or a fight that you can take that allows you to get your momentum back.
Or hopefully you have so many eliminations at that point you just need placement because you were fighting so hard. Let's say you had like 9 kills on just you alone and everyone else had like 6 or 5. Okay, sure, running away at that point, but I mean, hopefully you get the momentum back and just want to get back into it again, right?
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, it's situation by situation for sure. Like, there's not one. It's not universally bad to craft banners at all. I'm not ever gonna say that. But what I am gonna say is that it's very obvious what the intentions are.
Yeah, whenever they're like they're
banners with a lot of
afraid
people.
to do anything.
Yeah.
And then
they're not confident in their ability to fight. They know they suck, so they go and they play a support legend. They pretend to be involved in the fight, but they have no understanding of how to take angles or do anything by themselves.
it makes sense. Now the tip number 5, this is the last tip. You wrote down don't solo queue ranked.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to give this many tips, and if I have to give this much advice, and if I feel the need to yap this much about solo queue, why are we doing it to begin with? You must just love pain. It's a team-based game, and I hate that it is, because it's the most individually satisfying and individually rewarding game. Especially right now with how punishing and how difficult the rank system is, it is better to just try to make some friends with some people and to just queue. I don't get me wrong, I understand that LFGing is sometimes just randoms with extra steps because a lot of these people have crazy egos for no reason. Like, they're all horrible and they act like they're not, and they really need to be humbled. It's gonna, if your goal is just to get masters or get diamond or whatever rank that you're trying to get, it is honestly just better to try to make friends with some people and just to queue with your friends, because at least you're in Discord or you're in party chat. You're not using game chat, which is really bad, and you have the ability to be more on the same page. As long as you all approach it with like a learning and growth mindset, I feel like it can be a lot more fun. And it can result in a lot more gains than just solo queuing. But
I agree with that.
At the end of the day, my biggest piece of advice, just for the sake of making Apex Legends fun and not making you want to rage quit the game entirely, is just to not solo queue ranked.
Unless, one day, this is me getting off topic. Wouldn't it be interesting if they made it so you lost less points as a solo queue or something to mitigate it? Anything, just so there's an incentive to solo queue.
Honestly, I think that instead of giving certain players special treatment within a specific game mode, I think that it's more important for Respawn and for EA to make the changes they need to Apex to get more people to sign up for it and more people to play it, and just to increase their average concurrent player count, so that they can then have a ranked mode that is exclusively solo queue.
Oh, speaking of which, I have to ask you this, and this is another bonus part of the video, okay? What do you think of the Apex announcing that solo tournament like queuing mode that's coming out this coming Tuesday? Did you see that?
It's amazing. I think that if all of the implementation is good, and if they do a good job on executing, I feel like I think that this is historic. It's the first time that Apex is truly recognizing how bad the solo queue experience is in comparison to a team-based experience. Solo queuing in Diamond and then running into a 3-stack of rank 1 pred, the rank 1 predator 3-stack is not fun. And there's very few times where you're going to win that as a solo queuer unless you are just absolutely insane at the video game. And I feel like this is one step closer to Apex recognizing that solo queuing ranked and playing ranked with a 3-stack are very, very fundamentally different things, and they use these modes to test things out. And so if this test goes well, I think that it's going to make Apex incredible in the future.
Also, that's a great segue. You mentioned earlier watching an insane player. If you want to watch somebody who is insane, such as Hollow, you got to watch this full video. I'm going to shout it out again. Just highly recommend watching him do solo to masters. It's 2 hours worth of gameplay. You really see how he shines through it, and the hard work that when you do put in the game, what you can pull off. So Hollow, thank you so much for joining in today's video, giving us some tips, giving us some insights into solo queue ranked and the insanity of it. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
Don't forget again, subscribe to Hollow, comment down below if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you all in the next one.